Hello, everybody. Welcome back to youtube.com/Geek Aloud. This is a Thursday night. It's 8 p.m.-ish. So, this is the Gaming Enforcement Agency. As always, I'm here on the couch, joined by Unky Dunky virtually. Sir, how are you this evening?
I am very well. G.E.A. It's in the game. Let's do this.
I love it. Also joining us, Bully. Sir, how are you feeling this evening?
I am going all right, and I can't believe old Unky stole me line. But anyway, let's push on.
We've got to wheel that line out more often. And that's the other thing we have to do more often is tell the fine viewers how the run of show goes. It is, of course, up first, games, interrogation, and deliberation. It is the 6 games the 3 of us have been playing all week long. We can't wait to take a deep dive with you, tell you all the particulars we found along the way. Then, of course, Unky Dunky's been hard at work, slaving away on the news. He's kicked down several newsroom doors, and he has quite the impressive lineup for us this evening. And then, of course, it's everyone's favourite segment, the Standoff. Unky Dunky, what can you tell us about this evening? Standoff.
Oh, mate, with next gen here and, more than a year old now, we've pretty much gotten rid of load screens. So we're going to take a look at the most memorable loading screens from, the yonder years of gaming.
I like it very much, and if anyone wants a sneak peek, check out the shorts on the Geek Aloud YouTube channel. You might get yourself an advanced preview. And then, of course, we come over to you in the audience for the 4th and final segment. That's audience integration. Anytime throughout the show you have any thoughts or comments, bang them into that YouTube chat. We'll round them up at the end and get straight back to you. It's interactive television, as you've never seen it before, but my God, we're breaking records here tonight. Speaking of breaking records, let's kick in the first door of games, interrogation, and first up this evening, it's Gotham Knights, and as I understand it, Bully, you've been doing some co-op action?
Oh, hell, I did jump in with Unky a couple of days ago. When we were playing at the side missions, I guess you'd call them, or the case files, we were having a chat, and I couldn't work out how to progress those, so we ended up jumping
You and I both.
Well, it turns out you just have to go into it while you're in the sort of main
belfry
area, the belfry. That's what I'm looking for. Thanks, mate. And you actually just select the case file and it says, yep, launch mission, which I hadn't worked out. Unky had, so we jumped in and did probably 3 or 4 through that. And as much fun as I've been having with Gotham Knights itself, the co-op was fantastic. And when you're fighting an enemy or a boss or whoever you're playing, or whoever you're fighting against, just to see one of the other characters whip across the screen and start belting into one of the enemies as you go, and it was amazing. And I reckon we spent a couple of hours doing it before work the other day, and it just sort of tips it over the edge. I think I've really enjoyed the game. I know Unky and I both finished the main story now, and really enjoyed it. There's a couple of plot twists at the end, which obviously for spoiler reasons we won't go into now. I know, Troy, you haven't finished it, and any other listeners or
I'm nowhere near finished it, so let me just jump in here and with some wild speculation. Could it be anything to do with Lazarus Pit, the Lazarus Pit? They keep mentioning a Batman's Dead in the Lazarus Pit. My God, if we mention there's a Lazarus Pit.
No, I don't think so, Troy. You're in for a treat.
What's a Lazarus?
Okay, very good.
What? Yeah, what? What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, no worries. Sorry, mate. Back to you.
No, but it's really enjoyable story. It's got a lot of the characters in that you'd all know, like Mr. Freeze and Harley Quinn and Clayface and those types. And it also leaves a lot of scope, from what I've seen, for a fair amount of DLC. You've got a lot of characters that weren't seen in the main sort of game or in any of those side quests. And I can see that coming up down the track. That I think we've previously discussed, and a lot of people have said in the past, that it was probably initially developed as a live service game, and at some point they've decided to change tack. But what you can see through that is the fact that they've got a core sort of base of the game, and that there will be, in my opinion, a fair lot of effort or a fair lot of additional content that could be dropped in in the coming months or years or whatever, depending on how long they want to support it. And you can continue with different storylines and different enemies and all that sort of stuff.
I guess that will depend on how heavily those incredibly unfavourable critical reviews were when it launched. having spent the week with it and playing it, I've never seen such a large gap between the game as I've experienced it versus the way it was reviewed. I think those reviews were way too critical, way too harsh. I hope it hasn't soured the sales too much and that we get that DLC bully.
Oh, so do I, and I agree with you. I can't understand where the hate's coming from. I know, like, some of the bigger review sites like IGN and GameSpot, I think it was, gave it a 4 or a 5. Now, if you're giving this game a 4 or a 5, I'm sorry, you're not playing it properly. You're not engaging with it. You're not understanding that it's not an Arkham game. You need to, I think I said last week, you need to just get that out of your head. It's not an Arkham game. It's a different style of game. Yes, it's in the same sort of universe and the same characters and all that. But it's a completely separate game. You just need to get that out of your head. And I think that's where, from my view, is that a lot of the reviews are sort of saying, well, we had these great Batman Arkham games. Why have we now got this? Why haven't we carried on with it? And they're almost using that bias in their review scores, from what I can see. And as I said, if you just treat it as it is, the story's fantastic. Yes, there's a couple of little things gameplay-wise that I could see being patched out or changed, which would improve the experience. But overall, it's a fantastic game to play through. There's a lot of stuff to do. Even the daily mission sort of things that you've got to go through, like your crimes and stuff like that. The occasional time I found those becoming a bit tedious. You just advance the story and then you come back to them again and you go, yep, no worries, and you start working your way through it. So, I mean, I really can't fault it. The single play is fantastic, as I said.
Can I jump in there?
Yep.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, for me, I've put, I want to say, about 7 hours into it at this point. We're near finishing the story. I've barely got into the main thrust of the game. For me, it's sitting at about an 8. But as I understand it, both Unky have now completed the single-player campaign. So I'm dying to hear from both you blokes just an overall score. What would you score it? You've just said IGN gave it a 4 and you said that was low. Where do you sit it, Billy?
Oh, look, to be honest, I'd give it an 8 or a 9. And when we were playing it, and I had this discussion with Unky, is we were talking about the reviews and how it was sort of being perceived. I've really enjoyed it to the point where I'd say it would be in my top half a dozen games for the year.
Yeah, from my side, it's definitely in Game of the Year discussions. Sorry, yep.
Yeah, so, and I don't know what Unky's thoughts on that. I'll, throw to him and see if he sort of agrees with that.
Yeah, well, I do sort of sentiment that, because I think 4 or 5 out of 10, you're pretty much fundamentally saying the game is broken, and this game is very far from broken. We had this conversation playing the co-op and just realizing how much fun this game is, not only solo, but just jumping in and how seamless it was. Bully had a game open, even say with you today, Troy, when I jumped in with you. I can just search for you, jump straight into your game seamlessly, and all of a sudden we're right there playing the game. There's none of this, confusion about how you invite someone in. You just jump straight into the game. You can go off and do something completely separate within that world and not even be tethered to that player whatsoever. But if you want to go complete story missions and stuff, you can do that as well, which is what we've done. I've now done the Mr. Freeze fight 3 times, solo, once with Bully and now once with you. But that's just says how much this game is enjoyable and how much you enjoy those segments and those boss fights, because I think they are a spectacle. And I think, as Bully said, like with DLC down the track, I think there's massive scope for what this game can do in the future. These side stories aren't really tied to the main campaign whatsoever, so I don't see why DLC couldn't do the exact same thing.
Can I ask, fellas, assuming that it's not going to be some great spoiler, is Bane in the game? I love Bane. I'd love some stories with Bane, but I don't know. Does he make an appearance?
No, there's no Bane. You get your Clayface, you get your Harley Quinn, you get Mr. Freeze, and I think, is that it, Bully, for main villains?
Clayface is in there as well.
I think I said Clayface, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Yeah, I think so, unless I'm having
Clayface, Harley, Ice. But they've got multiple story segments for each of those characters that seem to go on for quite some time as well. So you've either got like a full-on story mode, or you have to go back out in the open world and do sort of some mini missions before you unlock the next phase of that.
Well,
and as I mentioned,
I was just going to say the other part with that is it's actually taking you out of that open world as well, because when you do their side missions, that they transport you to a completely enclosed separate area that you run through, almost a linear sort of pathway, but You work your way through that, and then once you've done that section of that side mission, it jumps you back into the open map. So I 100% agree with you that there is almost limitless possibility of DLC that they could throw at this to keep it fresh for the next couple of years. I would have thought.
There
Yeah,
is.
well,
You go, Troy.
I was just going to say, my first request, please give me some Bane. That's, if they were to drop Bane DLC, assuming Batman hasn't made an appearance back yet, give us the Lazarus Pit DLC with Bane, with Batman re-emerging from it. To your point, guys, is Joker even in there yet? I mean, my God, Joker, does he make an appearance, or is that yet another awesome bit of DLC they could add?
No, well, that's the thing. I don't want to spoil too much, but no, there's definitely plenty of scope with a lot of DC villains and stuff that can make their way into this. Even DC heroes you could potentially bring in here as well. But it's just, I think they've got such a great foundation for a game they can keep building on it. Yes, it's not live service, but even though you can sort of see the bones of a live service game, I think what they've done to bring it back to be more this single player sort of focused story or co-op story, I think they've actually done really well to sort of blend the two. Yeah, there's some stuff there in relation to sort of gear and all that kind of stuff, and you're unlocking different kind of stuff to craft things, your Destiny Light, etc. But you don't really have to worry too much about that. By the end game and stuff, you are unlocking some pretty cool suits anyway. When you finish the game, you unlock the cool knighthood suits, which are just some of the best looking suits, I think, going around. It's just the co-op experience does definitely elevate it. I can see why some reviewers have said, yeah, once you play this game in co-op, it is good, is when they say it. But I mean, I've enjoyed this game solo. I've played predominantly solo, but just playing with you boys as well. Just, as I was playing with Bully the other day where I was Robin and he's Batgirl, Batwoman, whatever you call it. And you just see her come fly in. You just like maneuvering and doing stealth maneuvers together, and taking out enemies. And it's got some kind of synchronicity to it that you sort of don't really see in games. You don't really play co-op games like this with superheroes. You've got Avengers, but essentially that's just a brawler game where there's no stealth involved at all. This game you can sort of take out enemies and coordinate your attacks and stuff, and you feel really cool doing it. And the game looks really cool while you're doing it as well.
On that very point right there, mate, on the screen now, you can see the Mr. Freeze fight that we had earlier today. And look at the visual effect. Look at the visual treat here. Granted, yes, it's 30 frames a second, but once you've been in it for, I would argue, 5 minutes, once you re-acclimatise that 30 frames a second, you cease noticing it, and then you're treated to visuals like this fight. Check it out. Check out all the effects on screen. It's mind-blowing. It looks goddamn phenomenal. I absolutely love the look of this game. I love the feel of it. As I said, about 7-8 hours in. Can't wait to finish it. Thoroughly enjoying it. I think they've review bombed it for no reason. The official critics out there, I'm not sure what game they're playing, but two massive big thumbs up from me. And the one thing I'll note, just in the co-op thing, it actually reminded me, if you remember back, and I'm blanking on which one, but Splinter Cell, was it Chaos Theory? Whichever one first introduced that Mercs, what is it, Mercs versus whatever mode?
Spies versus Mercs.
Spies versus Mercs mode, thank you. This reminded me of that. Once we were playing in this, once I was Robin, you were Batgirl, and we were doing that, co-op stealth stuff. I was taken straight back to the Mercs mode from Splinter Cell. It's just phenomenal. Like, my hat's off to the developers. They've done a great job.
Yeah, it's just seamless. And obviously you do take a hit with that 30, but I think with the 4K graphics and the ray tracing and stuff, the game is a very pretty game and they create a lot of spectacle. So, I mean, we're pretty graphic hoary around here at G.E.A. and we love our 60 frames, and I was one of those naysayers that said, there's no way I'm playing this game at 30, but I've finished the whole game now and I was in awe of some of the stuff I was seeing on screen at any given time. And I don't know whether that would have happened at 60. Probably would have, but I don't think we would have got that crisp 4K and ray tracing and stuff that allowed me to take quite a few photos now in this game as well. Because this photo mode, I've never really speak of photo modes, and I know, Troy, you don't really like them, but the only other game before this that made me sort of jump into photo mode was Ghost of Tsushima, but this game's had me jumping into photo mode a lot.
Very nice. Can I ask you an Unky just for playtime to complete?
Campaign, maybe 12 hours, Bully?
I probably took me a bit longer because I did all the side missions before I went and finished it. Plus, was trying to do a lot of the random crime stuff as well, just to get some unlocks and stuff like that. So it probably took me a little bit longer. But yeah, I would have said maybe 15 to 20 for me. So if you were just pumping through the main campaign, I'd say 12 to 15. Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon I hit level 30 as I finished the game. So I think you were probably level 30 before you went to that last mission. Is that right, Bully?
Yeah. I was level 30 probably a good 2 or 3 hours at least before the end of the game. So still, I'd leveled up fairly quickly from doing those sort of side stuffs. And the only other thing I'll mention when you talk about the frame rate as well, when you're doing the co-op, the fact that you've got all that stuff on screen and the frame rate doesn't drop when you've got two of you in the co-op.
Not one bit.
And you're not noticing it all. Whether they had to do the 30 frames because of that, and they couldn't get to the 60, I'm not sure. But it's certainly whatever they've done. I kudos to them because it works unbelievably smoothly with the two of you on the screen.
I think one of the first rebuttals they had to the 30 frames per second was that they do provide this seamless drop-in, drop-out co-op. So I dare say it is a big part of it.
Well, it's great stuff. No final thoughts from me. If you fellas don't have any other points you'd like to make, shall we move on?
No, my only point is that, this game got a raw deal from reviewers, and definitely if you enjoy DC, if you enjoy Heroes, if you enjoy Batman, even if you enjoy the Arkham games, give this game a shot.
100%. All right, game 2 then this evening is Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. And this is some fine work by Unky and myself earlier today. We paired up seamlessly and just got to enjoy. Now, I know we raved about it about a month and a half ago on here when we did the co-op beta, and we said the game is seamless. And now that it's launched and servers are live worldwide and people are really hammering it, just underscoring this game is still seamless, absolutely phenomenal. I would argue one of the best Call of Duties I've ever played. I can't think of a better, in tandem. The single player is bloody flawless, and so is the multiplayer. This Call of Duty, if you haven't played Call of Duty in 5 years or whatever, this is definitely the one to jump back in on, in my opinion. Unky, your thoughts?
My first thoughts are this is clearly not my gameplay because you're clearly playing as Finding Nemo with that fisheye brought all the way back. And you're dying way more than I did, but that's okay. I don't want to point out I did finish second and first in the 2 games we played today. But that's no big deal. We did win both games as well. I didn't carry us at all.
How is the back? You did have to carry 7 people earlier today.
You saw actually, and it's pretty sore. I did do back in the gym as well. It could be another part that my back's sore, but I was carrying most of our team today in Call of Duty. No, really good. Still enjoying the maps for this. I think these are some of the best maps we've got in a Call of Duty as well. I think they both have equal elevation, left, right, middles that you can go down. And as much as I swear playing Call of Duty because I feel like I can get the raw deals sometimes, I've had I blame a lot of it on the lag, but I do that and then I end up on top of the ladder anyway. So, hashtag gamer. But no, really enjoy it. I have had a few issues with lag. The lag's dropped off, I think, since the day one. I think I was in day one. I was getting a fair bit of lag. I think it was because of everyone trying to play at once. But I think now it's sort of dropping off a fair bit. So you don't quite have those bullshit moments where you feel like you've got the drop on an opponent and you still end up on the ground. But not as much as Troy. But
it's all right, mate. The scoreboard's here at the end. It's fine. It talks for itself.
No, it's all right. Is this the second game we're watching, is it?
Well, I'm not going to put the first game on air.
Was it? I think V22 kills. I think you had 19 or something. I think we both smashed it.
Oh, yeah. We had a good round.
No, we did really well. No, I'm equally impressed with this game. I think I'm having more fun with the multiplayer than the single player campaign. I'm at a point in the campaign now where I'm a little bit stagnated on it. I still think the checkpointing system is absolutely horrendous in some of those missions where you do a hell of a lot of stuff, especially on those harder difficulties. And then I had a moment where I'd finally cleared out absolutely 2 buildings, took me forever on the hardest difficulty, and then all I had to do was jump down this area. I had a rope. And I thought, okay, I'll just go down there. It's not that far. And then instead of waiting for the cutscene to play, holding X and jumping down the rope, I just jumped down the hole and died and went straight back to the start of my checkpoint. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. And that is the moment that I dropped the difficulty down because I'm like, I'm not doing this again on the hard difficulty. So it's left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Single player wise at the moment. I will sort of get back to it and see how we go. But multiplayer so far, I'm having a lot of fun with it. Can't wait to jump back in with you, Troy, or even Bully when you finally pick up the game and kick some teeth in.
Oh, yes. Now, speaking of Bully, I understand you still haven't pulled the trigger on making the purchase for this year's Call of Duty. Has any of this talk spoken to you? Do you think it's loosened the wallet?
Oh, I think you've almost got me. Just the talk of you guys and how much fun you've had, especially with the multiplayer. I must admit, whenever I play the Call of Duty games, it's mainly for the multiplayer side of things. I don't generally get into the story as much. and play through that. And if I do, it's generally just on the easier levels, just to sort of fly through it and see what it's about. But 100% the enjoyment and what you guys have said about how much fun it is, and the level, as you said, Unky, the level design and that sort of stuff speaks to me in terms of the multiplayer stuff. So I don't know, it's just that time of the year that we're getting a fairly long list of game releases, and something's got to give somewhere. So we'll have to see how we go.
We will indeed. Now, sorry, Unky, I know we touched on it earlier today, and I'm hoping, question without notice. Do we have the date? Because, what is it? Call of Duty Warzone 2.0 is yet to launch. And as we discussed today, we believe that the Battle Pass will go live when that does. Do we have a date for Call of Duty Warzone 2 and the first Battle Pass in this year's Call of Duty?
Warzone is November 16. I'm assuming the Battle Pass is around the same time. I could look it up now if you like, but the Warzone is definitely the 16th.
Well, I'm very confident that the Battle Pass goes live the same day. So if you're confident on the 16th, we can lock it in, I reckon.
Yep, lock it in, Eddie.
Perfect. I love it. Without any final points from you, Unky, I think we've done Call of Duty fair justice. I say we move on.
Let's move on, mate.
All right, game 3 this evening is Resident Evil Village. Now, it recently got a patch which enabled both third-person view and some extra accoutrement, as I understand. Unky, over to you. What else are they giving us?
Resident Evil patch. It's a patch that costs money. It's not just a patch. You actually have to pay to get the upgrade. But
was it 50?
$39.95, I want to say.
Very good. We'll run with that.
I think it's around that. Bully could fact check me if you like, but I think it's around that. But no, what you're getting is a third-person mode in the Resident Evil Village game. So obviously, all those purists out there that like their Resident Evil in third person, you're finally getting to play Village in that perspective. Mm-hmm. I did give that a go. I sort of, you can play your current game wherever you're up to in that mode. You're just going to make sure you switch over to the third-person mode in your main options screen. You can't do it once you're in the game, which was quite cool to do. And playing that, I was like, I don't really want to start where I am now because I'm right towards the end of the game. I'll sort of start a new game, and that was really hard to do without all my weapons and stuff. So I bounced that pretty quickly and
Can I ask, knowing that you are the whale you are, did you pay I only saw this today as I was jumping around some menus, but I think it was $7 or $8 you could pay to unlock everything in the Duke's shop from the very start of the game. Did they get you in for that $7 or $8 to have full access to the store early?
Didn't know that was a thing. Purchasing now. I have unlocked most things in that shop though, because again, #gamer. I've done most of the things in this game and played it multiple times and unlocked a lot of the unlimited ammo guns and stuff like that. So I've done a lot of that stuff already. So I still pay $8 to get the rest of it though. Why not? Anyway, the second part of this package is the actual expansion, the DLC, the Rose, something of Rose it's called, where you play as the daughter, no spoilers, of Ethan from the first game, which you're seeing footage of him right now. So you play as the daughter. She's all grown up. You see her at the end of the game at Village, and now you're playing as her. And the sort of premise of the game is she wants to essentially get rid of her powers that she has, that she's accumulated from that first game and her story. So she sort of goes into this sort of otherworld place where it's sort of she enters the My Seed, which is like this powerful thing. So she goes in there with her mind to try and get rid of it. So what you're seeing is she goes into the mansion from Resident Evil Village, the one with the big giant tall lady, Dimitrescu or whatever her name was. But it's all sort of changed and all weird. And it's got enemies like your Resident Evil 7 had, the more sort of what do you call them, like booger-looking enemies with all they're just like dripping. They seem like they're dripping wet and all the time and grey and creepy. So they're always after you. But I've been really struck by it. Like for a short DLC, I've heard it's sort of around 4 hours to complete, and I'm probably about maybe hour and a half, 2 hours in. It's creating some really good Resident Evil sort of nostalgia for me. It slows down the gameplay a fair bit. Like I've only just got a gun now, and ammo is really scarce, and it's created some really sort of eerie moments and some really cool like creepy visual moments as well, like Control and like a Remedy style game where they do take some liberties with the way they do graphics and creepy things. And it's really cool. Like I didn't kind of expect this out of a Resident Evil game, but creates really great tension. The graphics just look insane on this RE engine. Let's not forget that RE does not stand for Resident Evil Engine. even though it was, I think it stands for the Reach for the Moon engine, whatever that is. I think they should call it the Resident Evil engine. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But it's got like a bad version of the Duke in there. So the Duke that gives you your weapons in the first one, he's now essentially the bad guy in this Otherworld version. He's got some weird like gimp mask that he wears.
Is he overcharging for everything? And is his subtitle Jim Cryan or different evil shopkeeper? Okay,
I reckon he's a visual representation of Jim Ryan. I think that's what they went for in this game. But that's for the news stories. So far, like, I'm enjoying this game. It's got some really cool stuff going on with, like, you're aided by some mysterious entity that's sort of within the level that's sort of writing stuff on the walls in text and gold, this cool gold text, and he'll give you a gun. You sort of don't know where that's coming from. I'm like, is that your dad who's supposed to be in this vision that's trying to help you out? I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough, but I'm very excited to see the end of this DLC, and I'm kind of glad they went back to the third person for this. I'm a Resident Evil purist. I do like my third person Resident Evils, and I cannot wait for Resident Evil 4 that's coming out really soon, the remake. So to go back to third person with this DLC, I think is a great move. Whether that means they're now going forward with third person views for this Resident Evil franchise, I don't know.
I'd go out on a limb, Unky, and say that the first person, third person option will be the standard moving forward. I reckon they'll leave it up to the customers.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good move as well. Like, obviously, you don't quite get the movement and stuff that you do out of say something like Resident Evil 2 that was made third person. You can kind of tell this is sort of more like a mod than a direct, built from the ground up third person action game, because it does play it's it flicks between the first person and third person even during cutscenes and stuff like that, which obviously they've had to do just for storytelling, and obviously I don't know how they can do it with the third person, but no, I think they've done a really good job, and I think if they can sort of work on the whole third person first person stuff for their new iteration of Resident Evil 9, whenever we get that, I think it could be really good.
I believe they're going to call that Resident Evil City, aren't they?
It's got to be, doesn't it? We've gone from village, we've got to go city next, don't we? Surely.
And then the one after that, space.
No, but any of you boys looking at picking up this? I know you guys both scared of scary games, so probably not. And Bully's scared of spending money on video games.
I'm a Resident Evil fan, as you know, from way back, mate. This is me capturing the footage today, what you're seeing on screen. This is the Xbox version. I bunged it out to the third person. So I played through Village in first person mode on the PS5. Seeing this today, like, it was fun to see, and I'm glad I could see, yet to your point, how on scene transition, they do sort of force it back into the first person, get through that scene transition, and then come back out to third person. It makes sense. That's a compromise I had to make to get it there. It's as enjoyable as it was. No, it's not going to make me, I'm not going to part with the 30 or 50 bucks or whatever to get it and play through it again. I'll just happily enjoy it on the next release whenever it comes out. So enjoyable, yes, but no, I won't be going to play through it again. Bully, has it got your interest at all?
Yeah, I reckon it has. That I've always I'm same as Unky. I've always preferred the Resi games in third person, and I did enjoy playing 8 originally when it came out. But you throw that third person in there, you throw in the DLC, and a couple of other little bits and pieces, and it's. I just had a look. It's $20 US, so it's probably about, I think, 30 or 35 Australian.
Yeah,
right. On the price of it. So for that sort of money, and it seems like you're getting a fairly decent slab of content for that price as well. Whereas, you look at some other games that are throwing out DLC, and it might be, costume packs or, stuff like that for the same price. I think you're actually getting some worthwhile content here.
Hey, Bully, now that wasn't a dig at Gotham Knights, was it?
That was a dig at you buying $35 DLC costume packs on Gotham Knights. And I'll tell you what, if you gave me the option of being scared of playing a horror game in the dark by myself, or trying to explain to my wife the credit card bill, I will take the playing Resident Evil in the dark every day of the week.
No, fair call.
Perfect. All right, fellas, may I suggest we move on to game 4 then? And this is over to you, Unky, for more A Plague Tale Requiem.
Yeah, so I've played a bit more of Plague Tale now, and I'm not sure how far Bully is in it. I've now gone on some raft with some dude, and I've had some fights with some crossbow stuff. Have you done that, Bully?
Yeah, so I've gone probably, I reckon I'm about an hour or two past that, into that sort of next section.
Yeah, okay. I'm still just blown away by the vistas and stuff they keep showing us in this game. Like, compared to the first game, which is sort of so contained and quite small in comparison to this, like, they just keep taking you to places where I'm just in awe of what they're showing me. And again, I said it last week, but it just gets me excited for God of War. And I probably shouldn't be thinking about other games while I'm playing another game, but that's kind of what it's making me do.
Oh, can I just on that very point, mate, the world building in this is phenomenal, and it reminded me of the first time you go into the Citadel in Mass Effect, and the first time you go into, and I'm blanking on the second example, best world building era, Bioshock Infinite, when you first step foot in Colombia. That just meander through the streets, and oh my God, this is an entire lived-in world. This game has set a new mark for that. You're going to see it in this footage, and sorry, back to you, Billy. Sorry, Unky.
Yeah, no, so obviously you played a little bit more Troy as well, but it's such a good looking game, and I think for not a AAA game, I think it looks very much AAA.
Push back on that. This is a AAA game. I don't see how you can say this isn't a AAA game.
Well, I still don't think it is. I don't think it's got the budget of a AAA game or the studio numbers.
To call it a AAA game. Particulars aside, you could stand this up against Bioshock Infinite, and it's comparable. Like, it's AAA in that sense. It's certainly not a procedurally generated, Metroidvania.
And I think that's why these developers need to get the plaudits that they deserve, because I think with a AAA studio, with a AA studio, to create something that they've created like this, I think is an outstanding effort, and I think
which is why we should call it a triple gay game.
Well,
just to jump in there, I'd almost agree with you, Troy. It's not just the visuals and that sort of stuff, but the atmosphere they create with that, and the music that goes with it. That it's not just there's bits of sort of orchestral music that go along with what's happening, but you could almost pick out instruments that would have been around in that time frame of sort of 13th, 14th century France. You can almost hear the flute, and you can almost hear a harp or stuff like that. That if you're actually paying particular attention to it, you'd notice that they're not instruments they're using that you'd see a lot of, and that really sort of sucks you into that time frame of and the atmosphere of it as well. So I'd almost tend to agree with you. Yes, they don't have the budget, but you stack this up against plenty of other AAA games that have been released over the years, and this at least goes toe to toe with them, if not beats them.
And that's what I'm saying. It is AAA by what we're getting, but I'm saying in terms of budget, in terms of development, like they've got a AA studio. That's what I'm saying. How good this game is. Like, this thing looks AAA, feels AAA, sounds AAA. That's how good this game is for what they've had to develop with. And just compared to the first game, which was such a great game, to go to the scope they've gone to with this game, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and better. And the more I play it, the better it gets. The mechanics keep opening up. They keep sort of utilizing those mechanics more and more, and there's more ways to do things as you go through those levels. And it's just, the story is really good. I think the emotion, I think the acting's better in this one than the first one. I think they portray what's going on a lot better than the first one.
It's just a shame they dropped those French accents. That would have really given it 100 out of 100. But anyway,
it is there. But they do really well at introducing new characters, and then, for lack of a better word, killing them off very quickly, even though you've just come to like them very quickly. So I know Bully probably knows exactly the one I'm talking about with the raft. But like, I was really loving this character, and then as quickly you just start liking him, they are gone. But the fact they built up the fact that you like the character so much that his death actually had a meaning so quickly, and I know from reviews that I've read that it happens a few times where you like characters and they won't be with us for much longer. But I just think the storytelling they're doing, and as we've already spoken about, the quality of this game, I think, speaks volumes for it. And the fact that it's on Game Pass and doesn't cost you a cent apart from that subscription is just incredible, and shows the value of Game Pass as well.
And this is the footage that you're seeing on screen right here. This is you being introduced to a town, and you just pass through it. It goes for maybe 5 minutes, and you walk through, and there's various stalls, few NPCs, and there's a stage, there's a performance happening, there's fire breathing. It's just these little bit, and they just build out the world perfectly. It's AAA world building at its finest. It's right here at the head of Chapter 2 in the game. My hat is off to these guys. They've absolutely nailed it, smashed it out of the park, and I can't see why this game also wouldn't be in Game of the Year contention. Phenomenal effort, phenomenal stuff. If you've got Game Pass, you don't have an excuse. May I suggest, gentlemen, we move on to Game 5.
Let's do it.
Okay, here we go. Game 5 this evening. Thanks to a misread by me, the footage you're watching is Batman Arkham Asylum. But Unky, over to you.
It's funny you should say that because it should be Arkham City, but I did accidentally download Arkham Asylum first. Well, half download it. It was like, your game is ready to play. I'm like, hang on a second, did I download City? Fuck. So I downloaded City and I deleted because I've played this game like 10 times and I can't speak more highly of it. It won a Standoff just a couple of weeks ago for best Batman game for a very good reason. But I wanted to sort of play the City game because a lot of people sort of harken back to the City being like the Batman game when they first sort of, dropped the restrictions of being just in this tight, confound world and gave you the whole city to sort of get around in. It's not Arkham Knight, which is the more newer one, which a lot of people griped about the Batmobile and stuff like that. I loved the Batmobile gameplay. I loved Gotham Knight, but I wanted to go back to Batman Arkham City just in the light of playing Gotham Knights and just to see sort of what the differences were and how it played. And I was immediately struck. It actually does play quite differently. And I actually prefer some of the controls in Gotham Knights going back to this, like pressing the LB button to scan, and I think you hold right trigger to crouch in Batman Arkham, which is a bit weird, and to sprint you've got to hold A, which is really hard to move as opposed to clicking the left thumbstick. So there's a few things in Gotham City that I would like, the control scheme to be slightly different after playing Gotham Knights, because I think Gotham Knights sort of hones the controls a little bit more, but sort of being able to sort of drop in as Batman and sort of that combat never gets old. You got Gotham Knights, which is a similar kind of thing, but it's more RPGs and they've got health meters and and all that kind of stuff. So you got to hit them quite a few times before they die. Whereas in Batman, you can sort of string one hit to another, and you've got the counter move, which I think Batman is different to Gotham. Gotham, you've got to dodge as opposed to counter each time, so which is its own gameplay mechanic. I kind of enjoy the whole dodge mechanic in Gotham, but with Batman Arkham City and playing that and just that hitting that Y or triangle button just to counter and take on tons of enemies or rip the weapons out of their hands, and it's got that Batman feel. Like, it is such a cool game just to drop in as Batman. Arkham City, starting the game fresh as well, where you're playing as Bruce Wayne and you're dropped into the prison, you've got to escape, and you're actually playing as Bruce before you climb the building, and then the Batsuit gets flown into you from Alfred. It was just pretty epic stuff.
Great moment.
I remembered how much I loved this game from the first moment. I would love to see something like this get a full remaster. I think the Arkham Asylum and City games, I think, are rife for a remaster like the Dead Space is getting, and I would love to see someone do it. But it's like great games that could be made even better by a 60 frame per second and a 4K enhancement.
Well, hopefully Sony give Jim Cryan the flick soon. Maybe he'll land at Warner Brothers and force those remakes through.
Maybe.
The one thing I'll note about this, though, going back and playing this, was I was shocked, I should say. I had forgotten how many times I slowed you down, did the earpiece or the slow door open. I had forgotten how limited we were previous generations, how much loading had to be done, hidden in the background and tucked in. Whereas when you jump...
It's almost like you knew what standoff we were doing tonight, Troy.
And then you jump to Gotham Knights and it's bang, you're across the city in a heartbeat and she's loaded. It's going back to a game like this just gives you a fresh appreciation for how far we've come with the current generations. But that'll do it for that one. Let's go to game 6. Bully, you've been playing some Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I understand it.
Oh, again, I think this is 4 weeks running. I've put this in there.
Hey, no problem with that, mate. If you're gaming it, game away.
But it's still, just still pumping it through. It's I don't know what else to say with it that I haven't previously said, but it's a massive game. I think, I know, Troy, I think you said you did 140 or 50 hours into it when it first released. I think
215, I think, mate. Yeah, keep going.
I think I was close to probably 70 or 80 on the first run through, and then, on this one, I've gone back and basically, I did start from scratch again. So I've played through the whole thing. I checked the other day, I put in another 55 hours into it.
Nice.
And it's just one of those games that you can jump in, you can spend a couple of hours in it, you can do a few, you can either progress the story or there's, side missions galore with it. You can sort of go off on a tangent and say, all right, there's a quest around this sort of mythical beast. All right, well, that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to spend 2 hours. I'm going to, see about the Minotaur or see about blanking now, but any.
That's right, Bully. If you're me, it only takes 20 minutes, but you take your 2 hours. It's fine.
I'm just a bit unsure as to how you're hearing me there, Unky, because I'm not quite sure how you're fitting that headset on. Head's exploded.
It is harder to fit a headset over a full head of hair, boy. It's tough.
Oh wow, we're stupid. We're stupid.
Jesus, this is getting a bit tense. Should we move on to the overtime, fellas?
Well, I won't be paying any overtime for you this week, I'll tell you that right now.
Sorry, boss. Sorry.
All right, then, overtime it is. Unky, what overtime have you been overtiming?
I'm a bit late for this one because I actually played it a few weeks ago, but I was obviously missed a couple of shows thanks to Believe stepping in for me. I'm going to be nice to him now. I was playing.
It's fucking late for that.
Hashtag backup gamer.
No, I jumped in because I know Bully likes the Serious Sam games, doesn't he?
Oh no.
Tolerates? You tolerate them.
I always think that they're okay, and then I go back and start playing them and think, what the hell am I doing?
That's pretty much what I did with this one, Bully. Serious Sam Siberian Mayhem. It does run much better than the other Serious Sam games, and it sort of hit that 60 frames per second. It was a bit of fun. It was slightly more polished than I think a lot of the other ones are, especially on the Xbox. And yeah, it was a good time. It was good. It's got that Duke Nukem vibe, like, Serious Sam. You don't really want to. It should be called "Don't Take Him Too Serious Sam" because that's essentially what it is. Just some bloke meathead getting around with guns and shooting aliens and stuff like that, and reaping up big scores. But it can get very frustrating with a lot of enemies on screen and not enough mechanics per se to sort of not die a lot. And I'm a pretty good gamer, and when I'm dying a lot in a game when it's on normal difficulty, there's something wrong with balancing. Am I right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
That's right. And next one on my overtime, I also finished this a couple of weeks ago, was the Last of Us Left Behind DLC. So I did go off and polish that off from the Last of Us 1 remake. And that was, again, a very enjoyable experience. It was I think the second time I'd been playing through that, whereas I played through The Last of Us multiple times.
Can I just ask on that, mate? They made several gameplay mechanic changes to The Last of Us when they remade it. Did those changes carry over into the DLC, or is the DLC as it originally launched?
I don't remember the DLC overly in terms of to be able to say whether it was changed too much. I just know that it looked really, really pretty.
Sure.
What I was doing, and just it wasn't so much about the gameplay for the Left Behind DLC because it's got a lot of emotional resonance stuff. It's a lot of the gameplay stuff's it happens in the slower moments where you're sort of getting around with Riley as Ellie in the flashbacks, where you're sort of walking through the mall and you go and taking photos with each other and showing that relationship before.
And the joke book.
Yes, and the joke book comes. And my God, thank you for bringing that up. I did not realize how many times you could hit triangle for next joke and how many jokes they go through.
And did you get the trophy for hearing them all?
I did. And let me tell you, there is easily more than 20 because I just kept going and they just kept going. I'm like, they really went with this.
Yeah.
So it was same with the Magic 8 Ball. I think you hit the Magic 8 Ball skull thing in the Halloween shop like way more times than you think you're going to be able to get different results. And it was funny every single time. So, and the water pistol fights and the throwing the bricks at car windows, just stuff, just having fun with someone else within this apocalypse. It was just something so different for the game and so different and removed from the Last of Us 1 proper that it's just such a different experience and enjoyable in its own right. And I think it was such a special DLC. I can see why they did it. Didn't need to do it. You could easily say that Last of Us Part 2 needs a DLC. If they did something similar to this, I could see why they would do it as well. But just a special little experience.
It really gives Ellie an entire extra dimension to the whole character. That DLC just fills in so much more of her story, and it's done brilliantly. I would absolutely take any more Last of Us storytelling. Anytime they want to flesh out a character, sign me up.
Absolutely, it really does. And I could see them actually. I'm surprised they didn't do it with The Last of Us Part 1 remaster and just work that story into the main game. And obviously when Joel's down and you're sort of using Ellie, that's when this game takes place. Then it has the flashbacks. I don't see why you couldn't just expand that and have Last of Us Part 1 and just incorporate that whole scene into it and just extend the whole game, because I think that would elevate the whole thing. I just think I don't know why you wouldn't do it, whether that happens when they do The Last of Us Part 2 inevitable remaster/remake and they release them both as a pack when the show comes out, which we'll talk about in a news story very soon. But just a great experience. And The Last of Us Part 1 still on the top list of my games for this year.
Fantastic. I'm still yet to do more than install it for the channel, but that install is available on Geek Aloud should you be keen to see it. For my overtime this week, I just want to give another quick shout out to Microsoft Solitaire on Android. If you're an Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscriber, you get the subscription for Microsoft Solitaire, so you can play it on phone without the interruption of ads. And I've been throwing way too much time into it this week, but that's it for my overtime. Bully, any overtime from your side, sir?
Oh, finally, Game Pass is worthwhile. I can jump into it now. No, I don't have any overtime. I've spent the vast majority of my week pumping my way through Gotham Knights. So that's about it. But I will say I do have to go and pay some overtime, so I'm going to bounce out and leave you boys to the rest of the show. And to everyone else, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoy the rest of it.
Be safe out there, Bully.
Beautiful work. Thanks, Billy. Great stuff, mate. Speak to you next week. No doubt. All right, then. What do you say, Unky? We take a small active reload, and then we'll be right back for some news.
Mate, let's do it.
If I can find the button.
Yeah, bro, I am here. Mate, we go into news, yeah? All right, you have the right to remain newsworthy. All right, we have story one this evening is from Video Games Chronicles, Troy, and this one is PlayStation Plus has lost nearly 2 million subscribers since its revamp. But Sony Network Services revenue is up. CFO says it expects to recover subscribers next quarter. So according to the latest subscribers estimates, which were published Tuesday as per the fiscal year 2022 quarter two financial results, the first full quarter since it launched the PlayStation Plus revamp. Despite the revamp, PlayStation Plus subs declined for the third quarter in a row. The total number of subscribers stood at 45.4 million for the 3 months ended September 30, 2022, down from 47.3 million in the previous quarter. Troy, have you got audio back?
Well, I'd like to say I have, and yes, indeed I do. Woohoo, got it working. All right, sorry about that, everyone. Yes, Sony. Let me hit some buttons here. I can't believe Sony acting like they're the toughest, coolest kids around, and people are abandoning ship. Unky, who would have seen this coming?
Oh, who would have seen this coming? Well, I still have the full subscription going, but for me, like I don't really have a reason to have it going.
Well, just this week, just in the past week, I jumped on and cancelled my PlayStation. Like, I'm just at the default PlayStation Plus tier. I've buggered off the deluxe tier because there is 0 point having it in Australia. It's just a really subpar service in Australia when you compare it to Xbox Game Pass. I don't know why anyone in Australia would have any tier above the standard default PlayStation Plus.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see that because they're not giving us a lot of stuff to use with that higher tier at the moment. We can't stream games for starters, whether that's hurting or
and
not.
they're not recycling. Sorry.
No, it's right. I was going to say, like, we're not getting new games day in day. Like, we're not getting God of War on this service, Ragnarok, for free day one, whereas Xbox is still giving us their day one games. Granted, there's a story coming out very soon that, they haven't had a whole lot going on with Xbox and stuff, but at least we're still getting a lot of games coming through that Game Pass service. Whereas this service, I don't even know why I haven't tried at all.
No, it's like they launched it and then they just walked away from it. They have done damn near zero in respect to refreshing that library, getting new titles in, getting new titles, getting old titles out. So it's like they've released it and then just ignored it as a service. So rightly so, 2 million people jumping off. I hope everyone jumps off and sends a real clear message to money-grubbing bloody Jim Cryan. This Sony are just being so anti-gamer, so anti-consumer this generation particularly, but in the last 12 months, they've really ratcheted up. They are just nickel and diming left, right, and centre. And I love this message from fellow gamers saying, Sony, you're just being crazy and we're out of here. I hope that continues, as we'll see in another story. Speaking of another story, shall we move on to story 2, mate?
Let's do it.
This evening, Xbox Game Pass November lineup adds Return to Monkey Island, Pentiment, and Vampire Survivors. My big question to you, Unky, Vampire Survivors, is that the one I've heard on several podcasts? Shout out to Defining Duke, I believe is where I first came across it, where it's PC, Game Pass, Ultimate PC, whatever that's called, exclusive currently Vampire Survivors, and rave like indie hit reviews, but do I understand, is it coming to console by this headline?
Oh, I think it is. I think it is coming to Xbox, which is what's great because, there has been rave reviews for Indie Darling. Then everyone's been raving about it on playing on their Steam Decks and stuff like that. All the podcasts I watch, they've been raving about this game. So to get it to Xbox Game Pass, very, very soon is just another one of those things. It's like, this is a reason to have Game Pass. A game you otherwise probably wouldn't touch, you're gonna get. And then you got Return to Monkey Island as well, which a lot of people love the Monkey Island games. Again, I'm probably not someone who's going to pay for Monkey Island, but you give it for me free on Game Pass, you bet the hell I'm playing that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to go hands-on myself. Fan of Monkey Island, back in PC days, but I haven't touched that in damn near 20 years probably. But I will absolutely happily install it and play it now that it's in Game Pass. That's just fantastic news. Xbox, pro gamer, pro consumer. Let's hope their numbers skyrocket as a response.
I'm sure they will. We've got also Pentiment coming out, which is a new game by Obsidian. So they've brought us quite a few games in the past. Obsidian, what was the last one they did? They've done, what was it? Oh, it's an RPG shooter. The sequel coming. I can't
help you, sorry, mate. I'm not familiar.
No, that's okay. Anyway, this new one's like an illustrated game from like one of the early 16th century Germany and stuff like that. I think it's turn-based RPG style thing. It looks very interesting. I'm not sure it's my style of game, but I think it's something that'll do very well through Game Pass.
But once again, man, stuff that we're not sure if it's our style of game going into Game Pass, we can try it out at no additional cost. Big thumbs up to Microsoft. Keep them coming. Speaking of Microsoft, Story 3 this season, Video Games Chronicle. Phil Spencer acknowledges it's been too long since Xbox first-party game. Unky, why would he say such things? What can you tell me?
Well, because there's been no games. Not no games, but no games from Microsoft. I think the last big thing we got was Halo? Was their last first-party game, and that was end of last year. Have we had anything since then? I don't think we have.
The only maybe is Flight Simulator. Did Flight Simulator come out after that? Possibly,
or even Forza.
Would be the only thing I can think of.
When was Forza Horizon? That was end of last year as well,
question as well. But I reckon that was September or November last year, and then Halo came out in December. But I think maybe Flight Simulator might have been February or March this year.
Yeah, maybe. That's right. I mean, we've had other ones like As Dusk Falls, which is sort of more indie. We've had the Forza expansion. I don't even know if that was actually on game. I think you had to
The
pay for
micro
the
machines,
Hot Wheels stuff as well.
Hot Wheels. Yeah, you did. You did have to pay for the Hot Wheels. Yes.
Oh, here we go. Obsidian. So they did Grounded, which just came out as well, full release
Of
for
course.
Xbox
The
Game Pass as
Honey,
well.
I Shrunk the Kids game.
Yeah, so I mean, they've had stuff. I mean, and Deathloop sort of finally came out to Xbox as well, but they haven't had that big sort of
But
Xbox game
they
at
had
the moment.
they had the two big potholes this year, Starfield and was it Redfall? Both due out and both pushed to next year. So they're the two gaping holes that were missed. Now, Bonnie got her game out December last year and her head rolled this year. Starfield and Redfall getting pushed to next year. We think maybe after they come out, 6 months after we can next one to more heads to roll for their tardiness. Is that a possibility, do you think?
Yeah, possibly. I think Microsoft's going to have a big year next year with those two games specifically sort of coming out early next year as well. I think Microsoft's in a good spot now. I think they've got enough stuff coming to Game Pass that they don't have to worry too much about the big heavy hitters not hitting this year. I think there's a lot of games. I think if they did come out anyway, they'd probably get drowned out by your God of Wars and stuff towards the end of the year anyway. And there's not really many other heavy hitters left for this year, but there's a lot of games like God of War, and I think Callisto Protocol I think is going to do really well towards the end of the year as well, and that's the one I'm really looking forward to.
And
so,
is that confirmed day and date Game Pass, I believe, Callisto Protocol?
I don't know if it is Game Pass. It would be great if it was, because it would help me decide what I was going to get it on, because at the moment I'm kind of leaning towards PS5 with the haptic feedback controller with that game.
Yes.
But we will have to wait and see, but if it was Game Pass, that would just make my mind up for me.
Well, I'll tell you what, you look that up, and I'll jump over and intro the next story. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right, here we go. Story 4 this evening. And this one from Guitar and free band, and is then immediately shut down. Now, this is a story behind Hitman Go and Tomb Raider Reloaded. Personally, I'm a massive Hitman fan, as you're all aware. Also, Hitman Go was a fantastic game. It is really sad to see these are shut down. I would love to know the business reason behind it. Like, a rebrand's expensive, and then to be immediately shut down, this sort of a studio that was going in one direction, then I would dare suggest it was sold to a maybe a Tencent or somebody else got hold of it at a higher level and then just shut them down as it no longer hit their sort of their roadmap for the future. But I have no further details. Unky, can you fill in any of those blanks for us, mate?
I don't have any more details other than the fact that they did rename the studio Anoma, and then the thing I can think of is that is, oh no, my studio got shut down.
I know my studio. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, so maybe that's why they named it that. I don't know, but it's It's a weird thing to rename and brand a studio only 3 weeks ago to then shut it down completely is very, very weird.
That sounds to me like, Tencent or an Embracer bought them and then just said, thanks. And it goes into my earlier point of no one should be making mobile games anymore. Just make console games. Everyone can see what Game Pass is doing. Everybody can see the xCloud coming down Broadway. If you're still making a mobile game now, I say you deserve to be immediately shut down. Get onto the consoles. That's where we want the games. And, of course, they can be ported across thanks to xCloud. I dare suggest. Unky, with any luck on digging up the dirt?
Well, they said
we have Callisto Protocol. Is it Game Pass?
It's not confirmed. No, it said it could come to Game Pass later on, but nothing confirmed as yet.
Well, my apologies for the action there, folks.
That's okay. If there's any game that I'm willing to pay money for this year is Callisto Protocol.
Heck yeah. Okay, now, the story 5 this evening. IGN, The Last of Us TV series on paper gets a 15th of January next year. Unky, how exciting is this?
I'm pretty excited. This is much sooner than I actually expected, because I thought we might get this releasing the similar time as like an announcement for a Last of Us Part 2 remaster or remake, or we might get it at the same time as the new multiplayer thing they've got going on as well. But to get it in January, this is way earlier, and I probably should have expected it, given that we got the pretty decent trailer like only a month ago or something, which looked pretty finished and all that. So generally not surprised, but I really like that we're getting this show this early next year, and I hope it takes off, and I hope we get a whole bunch of new people sort of into The Last of Us. And yeah, I cannot wait for the show, and I'm hoping with something like HBO behind it that we get a decent budget. I think they've got the right actor to play Joel. A little bit iffy on Ellie. We'll see how she goes, just in terms of the way she looks at the moment, but I think they've obviously hired her for a reason, so I think she'll bring her own sort of pizzazz to that role, and I really hope she sort of nails that Ellie vibe that we're kind of hoping she does, and that this show sort of has nice legs to sort of lead into the events of Last of Us Part 2.
Yes, and we know the actress has the chops for it from her performance in Game of Thrones, so she can certainly bring it. But the question is, will she? We'll have to wait and find out.
Let's just
Do
say
you anticipate the bundle?
Yeah, I reckon we'll get a bundle with both together. The only thing...
January 15th?
Yeah. No, not January 15th. I don't think that's coming that early. That's the thing. That's what makes me think there's no way that's coming that early, even though the show is coming out, which is weird. I think maybe The Last of Us Part 1 is what they're leaning on, and that's why they're trying to get the show out as quickly as possible since the Last of Us Part 1 remake came out. So maybe that's what they're leaning on. I think they've given us enough time for the early adopters of Last of Us Part 1 remake and the players that know what the game is, to now that the game's still pretty fresh, and then you bring the show out January and get all those new players in that can actually get PlayStation 5s. It's not in the news now, but apparently PS5s are getting a little bit easy to get your hand on at the moment. So I think it might be a nice combination of PS5s being available, the show coming out, and the game already being available. So I think it's good timing on HBO's and PlayStation's parts. We don't have to worry about Pedro Pascal being paid for season 2, though. Am I
right? Spoiler alert. All right. Story 6 this evening. I'm just going to leave that hanging. Chat. VGC reports that confirmation PlayStation VR 2 is going to release in February, and it's only $550. No, wait, that's American. It's 880 Australian dollars. It's more expensive than the console. Holy bejesus, am I going nowhere near this one? Unky, the whale amongst us. Are you going to be going for it, mate?
Mate, you may as well take one big giant RPG and just shoot this whale right in his pipe hole, because he ain't buying this one. Not day one. There's not a chance I'll get this on day one.
This is absolutely outrageous. This is what I was referring to earlier. Jim cried, what the heck are Sony doing? Could they be any more anti-consumer if they tried? How can they release the PSVR headset with a cable so it has to plug into the PlayStation 5? So, yeah, it's leveraging the PlayStation 5's tech, but how can the headset cost more than the console? This is the most insane story I've come across in 6 months, I reckon.
Yeah,
I can't even begin to understand how they came to this dollar figure. It's phenomenal. I don't understand it at all.
Like, I get it because I know the tech and stuff is there, and apparently it is, like, from all accounts, from people that have played it, it is really good. But you don't really have that title that's going to be like, I need to play this day one. Like, what's their number one title? I think it's Horizon, whatever it's called. Into the Mountain,
Breath of the Wild. No, the Mountain.
Yeah, that one. But like, it doesn't even like if you have a Half-Life Alyx on there, sort of remastered or done even better for PlayStation 2 VR or something, maybe. But you just like I'm a proponent for VR. I love it. I've got an Oculus Quest 2 or Meta Quest 2, but the reason I play that is because of the wirelessness of it and the freedom of it. I don't really care that the graphics aren't the best I can get through VR. It's that freedom of movement I get. All of a sudden with PSVR 2, you are tethered to the console again with one cable. Granted, there's only one cable compared to the PlayStation 4's 500 cables.
Well, you're either pregnant or you're not. You're either tethered or you're not. I don't care what they do with the cables. I'm tethered to a console.
Exactly.
And you want to charge me the premium $880? My God,
it's not
insanity,
even
Jim
compatible with the old game. So any old game you've got the VR, you cannot play on this thing right now. Like, granted, they might do something in the future where you maybe have to pay for an upgrade or something. I don't know, but you cannot play the vast majority of PlayStation VR games that are currently on the console. So you're going to have to buy this thing for $880 and then fork out all the money for all the extra software to actually play on it.
There's good news, though, attached to that, mate. They're only going to be able to get 5 off the production line between now and launch, but they're only going to have 5 customers. So all 5 of you out there who are looking to just throw $880 into the air and watch it evaporate, you'll be able to get your hands on a PSVR 2 headset day one.
You'll be able to get one of these. You just won't be able to get one of the PS5s to be able to plug it into.
This is just swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. Jim Cryan has got to be just dethroned. Surely, how many more mismanagements can he have? How many more times can he insult gamers, demand way too much money for stuff, and keep his position? I don't understand it. I can't wait till they replace him with somebody who actually has a gamer's sensibility at heart and puts a reasonable price on these things. My God, like, how are you and I not their prime target as customers for this? Long place, you know, we've been playing PlayStation since the PlayStation 1. We've bought every generation. We both bought PSVR 1. I got 47 titles. I don't know how many you got. We are Sony PlayStation players down to the ground, and this is just a slap in the face, and neither of us are going to pick it up. Sony, wake up to yourselves. Phil Spencer, come on in for the win. My God, Sony have absolutely redone all the mistakes they made on the PS3 right here on the PS5.
Really
numbers do not work for Sony.
Now, just as well, the other third of us that's no longer with us, just for tonight, he's not dead, everyone. He's somehow managed to get this over the line and going to buy one day one. So we will have impressions for you from this game, but that's Bully's cash that he's willing to fork out, and his divorce he's willing to have. So that's on him. For me and Troy, we like being married, and we're going to not buy this day one, and we're going to wait till it at least halves in price.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. I don't know what Sony are thinking, but I can't. This is dead on arrival in my mind. At this price point, they're going to get zero customer penetration. Any developers out there who are like, oh, we'll see if they're good, you know, if the hardware's got good adoption rate, maybe we'll invest and go again for a new VR title out of the game studio. They're going to get 0% adoption from PlayStation 5 games in this. So no developers are going to make a game. So they're going to have the launch lineup, 2 or 3 games after that, and then the thing's deader than the PS Vita. Like, this is just insanity. This is a no-starter. How do the stockholders not revolt and say, get out of here, mate? You're running the company into the ground. 2 million subscribers lost off PlayStation Plus is going to look like a favourable headline 2 months after this thing launches. It's sitting on shelves, collecting dust. No one wants it, and there's no developer support. This thing is already game over. Forget about it, PlayStation VR 2. It was a nice idea, but overpriced. Next story, this one from Game Revolution is Unky, I'm so excited about this one. Have you gone eyes on this story? Have you seen the goodness with?
I have not seen this story. I saw it drop in there late on the dock tonight, and I haven't had a chance to read it. So
let me tell you. Let me tell you the goodness. All right, so from a data mine, and it's this bloke at Sekiro Yubi. I don't know, insider, leaks, data miner, you name it, this guy's done it. But there's an area called the Colosseum, and not that it has definitely 30 bosses, but the way in which they lay out the level and the way it can be read from the data mine says that there are 30 flags, like 30 placeholder marks for where they spawn bosses, the methodology in which they use to create a boss instance and spawn him. There are 30 of those in this Colosseum DLC pack. So there's no guarantee there'll be 30 bosses, but they've allowed the 30 bosses. So this is a massive bit of DLC. I'm so excited. Still hasn't been an official announcement of the DLC, but this is being pulled out of data mine. So you know it's coming. It's the good business. And for me, who recently started replaying Elden Ring, this time on the Xbox, I'm loving this game. Silly at the minute, and they're telling me there's more DLC on the way. So 2 massive big thumbs up from me. FromSoft, keep kicking those goals. Unky, any thoughts?
No, it's always exciting when good games get DLC, and yeah, this is something that I could easily see myself getting back into for. It's still on my console, as much as I threatened to boot Elden Ring off for certain new games coming out. It's still there, so I would love a reason to play it. But going back to the previous story, Troy, I'm not sure if you've got the button ready for this, but I'm pretty sure Story 6 PSVR 2, that's worth an infringement notice, Troy.
I love your thing. Jim Cryan, your PSVR 2 incredible mismanagement misstep due to sack the company or the company sack you. Where are we? Oh,
we're in next week's game releases.
I'm here.
I think.
Game Informer. Yes. Game Informer. Thank you. I've done myself a little tizzy going in about. Well, sir, on screen we have Game Informer this week releases, and over to you for the read through, sir.
Mate, we have got Endling the Extinction Forever on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, November 3. So that's now in the past. No, it's today, in fact. We have Ghost Song, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch and PC, November 3. We have How to Say Goodbye.
Hold on.
Switch.
That is Ghost Song. That's what they're going to play for Jim Cryan as they escort him off the Sony.
If you look closely, that's a picture of Jim Ryan in the uniform there. I think that's him on the front cover. We have How to Say Goodbye, also a game about Jim Ryan's career. Switch, PC, Mac, iOS, and Android, November 3. The Chant, what everyone else is going to be doing once he's gone from PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PC. The Entropy Center, that's where he's going to be working. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC. This game looks quite cool. It's kind of like a Portal game, November 3, also out today. We have World Rally Championship Generations.
Nice.
Let's hope Jim Ryan gets hit by one of those championship cars and champions his career to a better mode. PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Demon Throttle, that's the reason he's there in the first place, because the man is a demon of the industry. On Switch, November 4, 2022. Harvestella, we'd love to Harvestella his organs because he's a piece of shit. Switch, PC, November 4, 2022. It Takes Two. It takes any two people to be better than Jim Ryan running PlayStation. Switch, November 4, 2022.
Fantastic. Well, speaking of It Takes Two, Unky and I shout out. We absolutely love that game. Not sure how it's going to run on the Switch, however.
At about 4 frames per second, Troy.
Oh my God, that split screen mode, that is totally going to kill it. God, there's some great visual effects up there. All right, that does it for the news segment. That can only mean one thing. It's time for the standoff. My one question. Who
will fight?
This week, as I said earlier, with the next gen of consoles and, PCs out there, if you're that way inclined, we have pretty much seen the decline or the absolute destruction of load screens in our video games. So we're going to take a look back and look at the most memorable load screens and pick a winner of the next 7 entries.
Oh, I was just looking at Jim Ryan's notebook, and he's actually planning to bring back load screens, but they'll only be $30 DLCs every time you want to see a load screen through Sony. So that'll be great.
Oh, that checks out. Yep. Thanks, Jim.
All right, mate. Standoff entry number 1 this week, sir, is on screen. Over to you.
We have the Mass Effect elevator. Who doesn't love an elevator screen to hide loading? Admittedly, these were actually, back in the day, this was not a bad way to do things. Like, Mass Effect had a lot of stuff going on. This was one way to sort of chill out with your mates. They had a few conversations here and there just in that elevator. Like, you got to have a look at your... I was going to say...
And shout out to the voiceover. The advertisements for the Citadel shops would play during the elevator rides, mate. Sorry,
that's right. And admittedly, on the old consoles, these things did go for quite some time. So, and sometimes not to load, all that much on the other end. Like sometimes you just go into a hallway, but it did take a while. But you got some story context, and you got to look at your character, whether you created a very, good-looking character or a very hideous-looking character, like a lot of people like to do with those Mass Effects. There was a good chance to catch up with your character and your friends within the game. It's just one of those ones that, you knew what was happening. It was loading the next screen, but at least they gave you something to look at. You can manipulate the character, but that was about it.
I agree. It was better than a static screen. All right, then. Standoff entry number 2 is on screen. Unky, over to you again.
Whew, back in the day, we had the Resident Evil door, Troy. This is going to go down as one of the most iconic load screens ever. Just and you come through the door. There was a whole bunch of different ones they had throughout the different genres of the games. I can't remember. I think we were still getting them in Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica and stuff like that. But they've sort of done away with them, obviously, now with the brand new games that we've got. But they were just such a clever way to hide what was loading in the background, but it was just always creepy, and the noise it made, it was so iconic, and it's just, I don't know, it's just something about the Resident Evil doors that just sort of created tension in that game.
Yes, they managed to add tension in the loading screen. That was their biggest tip of the cap to them. An absolute stellar entrant. Entry number 3 this week. Unky, Metal Gear Solid, what did they do?
Metal Gear Solid 5. So this is one of those hidden ones. So the game actually does have a loading screen before this that sort of just gives you hints and tips like your normal regular loading screen. But then the level itself sort of loads in while you're in this helicopter with credits playing and music playing. You can pick what kind of music you want to play when this is happening as well. And then the game loads in, and then you drop down out of the helicopter and play the level. But what an ingenious way to hide loading by having something so cool happen where it sort of plays out like a movie before you play the game, and it gets you pumped. You can look at the map, you can bring up your stats, you can bring up all that stuff, but the game essentially is just loading while you're doing all this stuff. I just think it was a brilliant way to sort of bring you into a game while hiding the loading screen itself. Because, like, obviously they play that loading screen at the start, so you think that's loading, I'm now in the game, but effectively, you're not.
It was brilliant, mate. I agree completely. An excellent entrant. What about number 4 this evening?
Oh, speaking of excellent entrants, this has got to be one of those ones where it's like, I can't remember a time where you had an interactive load screen like this before Assassin's Creed did it. The footage on screen right now is obviously from Black Flag, but this happened back in Assassin's Creed 1 where you would obviously the game itself, you're playing in the Animus, so this is effectively you loading through the Animus into the world of the game. But you could just run around, and essentially most people would just run around in circles and do what you could with the cool like running mechanics and just see what you can do. And as you can see on the screen, you got these feet are lighting up within this Animus. It's really cool. It's like awesome looking throughout the whole thing. It's just awesome. Like it was just I don't know what it is about running around in this thing, and like in the newer games you can actually bring out your bow and shoot your bow and fight through these things. It does nothing, and it got shorter and shorter as the games got through the generations. But back in the day, just being able to run around in this space was just something ethereal and just sort of took your mind off actually the loading screen that was happening in the background.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely loved it. I spent so much time, to your point, man, running around, and there was actually occasions where I was doing something cool and I was just a little bit disappointed when they took when they actually loaded the world. I'm like, I was enjoying that loading screen.
It's so true. Right, also they take you to the world and you just like perched on top of something, not moving at all. It's like, what's this?
Indeed, an excellent entrant this week. I'm enjoying that one a lot. But what has number 5 got on offer, mate?
Oh, number 5, we have Skyrim, which, well, I say Skyrim, but I should probably say most Bethesda games, because in a lot of the Bethesda games, you've got that loading screen where you can just manipulate like a gun or a character, whatever's on screen at any given time. And for whatever reason, like, I think Skyrim was infamous for having a loading bug where it got stuck on the loading screen, but because people were like used to like just rotating their character, which they could still do, they didn't realize they were stuck in a loading screen, and it was a glitch. So props to them for making a loading screen to hide the fact that their game glitched into a loading screen. So well done, Skyrim. But for whatever, it's just a simple, maneuver of being able to sort of just maneuver these 3D models within a loading screen was quite cool, considering most games now use it as an unlock mechanic when you unlock 3D models. That all you can really do is sort of rotate them within a game menu anyway. So this Skyrim's giving it to you for free.
Hey, and they give me something to do while it's loading. I love it. Number 6 this week. Oh, this one's special. Unking, what can you tell us about number 6?
Speaking of special, we have Spec Ops: The Line, which this is one of those ones that does just have loading screen like text at the bottom of the screen. But what's interesting about Spec Ops: The Line is if you've ever played it, your character goes through some stuff, Troy, and through that game, his psyche sort of changes and the game changes the way you're playing, and it sort of starts to question everything, and it sort of tries to make you start questioning what's going on in the game as well. And some of the context that comes up within that is just so different and stuff that you're used to seeing. Like it asks you stuff like, do you feel like a hero yet? I think you've got a few coming up on screen now if you can actually read them. Yeah. But like it's one of those ones that it really does make you think. Like it's like this is all your fault, and perhaps the most silly line of them all was, "Do you feel like a hero yet?" Which is the one which I've spoken about. But if you're a better person, you wouldn't be here. Stuff like that. It just really starts to make you think about being that video game person, and the stuff you're doing within video games not being real, but the stuff you're doing in Spec Ops: The Line, as you find out throughout the game, is really quite serious. And some of the stuff there just really does make you think about playing these games in a different way.
They do wonderful stuff on that Spec Ops loading screen. The final entrant this week, Unky, number 7 is...
We have Bayonetta. So Bayonetta 3 just came out last week as well, which I was hoping to pick up a copy and tell you my thoughts on, but I haven't had a chance to do that yet. But Bayonetta has arguably one of the best loading screens ever because you just literally get to practice your moves as Bayonetta. What better way to do, like especially for a game of old where you were just used to load screens just sitting there waiting. This game just let you have the full arsenal of moves with Bayonetta. You can do whatever you want, whatever, like work out your combos and then bring that into the game. And just the time just flew away I'm not sure if you ever played Bayonetta, but just being able to do that within the menu. And by the time you came into the game, you were sort of ready to go and you weren't just sitting there waiting. It didn't take you out of the action. So I really love the fact that brought, I think Devil May Cry, did something similar, which is a very similar type game in the future for that same kind of mechanics. But there's not many other games that actually let you have a full array of your mechanics. Assassin's Creed, all you can do is run in circles, but Bayonetta, they gave you that full arsenal of melee attack and special maneuvers that you can do in that loading screen. I just think it's definitely worth a call out and one of the best loading screens you'll see.
I agree, mate. Do I take from that comment that your chips this week are on the Bayonetta loading screen for the winner of the standoff?
In terms of pure mechanics and stuff you could do within a loading screen, but if we're going to go most memorable, I'm actually going to have to go with standoff number 2, Troy, the Resident Evil door.
Unky, you've picked it like a snotty nose, my friend. I'm right there with you. Hands down, the most memorable loading screen, the big creaking door from Resident Evil. We declare unanimously a winner is you, Resident Evil door openings.
And Troy, I can say unanimously because Bully has texted me from work saying his vote is also the Resi door.
Perfect work. It's unanimous for all three of us here at the Gaming Enforcement Agency Resident Evil. A winner is you, Unky. That can only mean one thing, my friend. It is time for the audience interrogation. What has been happening in that YouTube chat this evening, my friend?
Mate, I think we've confused people by actually starting at 8 o'clock tonight because there's not too many people there at the moment. So we've had Eric Tate and Sean Games in the chat tonight. So Sean, just in there saying, "G'day, boys."
Sean, thank you for joining us, sir.
And Eric Tate is up there with his pre-order of God of War, and Bully has mentioned back to him in the chat that he has also pre-ordered 2. I'm not quite on the pre-order yet. I reckon I'm still deciding whether I'm going to go a physical copy or a digital copy. I haven't quite decided yet. Now that I've polished off Gotham Knights, which admittedly I did buy a hard version copy, which I don't really do that often. It was just because I heard of some bad things and maybe I want to return it, but that didn't happen because I really liked it in the end. But now that I've polished it off, maybe I will get a hard copy and that God of War disc can just slot right in there, right in that PS5 ready to go.
Nice work. Happy to confirm I've already pre-ordered mine on Amazon, sending it to me. And I should mention while I'm here, shout out to Amazon for the what did they send me? The Gotham Knights, and they do that. I had forgotten all about that service, but do you know they do that? What is it? Day one price match guarantee thing. I'd forgotten all about it, but I bought it off Amazon for $89 or whatever, and they hit the credit card, and then the game came. But then, like 4 days later, I got the email, we're refunding you $10 because it should have been, the price match guarantee was $79. So no reason not to pre-order for Amazon. Get it day one on your doorstep, unless you're unfortunately Bully, and you get the refund if it comes out cheaper somewhere. So hot tip, pre-order, as I have, God of War on Amazon and get that refund should one be owing to you. What do you say to that?
I might have to. It depends on the price difference. I think it's $139 for that collector's edition on the digital store. So I think it's probably going to be cheaper.
Yeah, well, I think on the store it's $129 for the standard edition. I think the pre-order on Amazon was $89, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get $10 back on that. So I reckon the standard edition via Amazon is the way to go. But that will do it, I think, for this week. Unky Dunky, thank you so much, sir. Excellent work by you this evening, especially kicking in all those newsroom doors, mate. You had quite the full plate, and I appreciate your efforts.
No, it's my pleasure. The foot is sore, but it's more than worth it.
And you're back. Has that recovered from carrying the teams to the Call of Duty multiplayer today?
Oh, mate, I'll pop a couple of Voltaren and I'll be fine.
Fantastic. All right, mate, thank you very much for joining us, and no doubt we will speak next Thursday, 8 p.m. For all the viewers out there, thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate you checking this show out. Remember, every Thursday night, 8 p.m., we're here live on the couch. It'd be great for you to join us, but also throughout the week, keep your eye on the channel if you want to see those Let's installs. They've been coming in hot. And if I can, special shout out to the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 install for the Xbox Series X. If you ever want to see see someone dissect and install on the fly. Check out the first 4 minutes of that video. I've got to say, some of my sharpest work on the Let's Install series, if I can toot my own horn just for 1 minute. But that'll do it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Unky Dunky, what can the viewers do with the channel?
You can like it, subscribe it. You'll never miss it.
Oh, that was luck.
Hey, that's not it.
I love everything about it. Ooh.
Old Uncle Donkey. G Donkey.